Hi, everybody. This is Nonprofit Maintenance with OTSI. I'm Sally Rutledge-Ott. I have a very dear friend of mine that I have tagged for today, Brian Basilico. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Sally.
Do you want to tell everybody why you got that on your face?
Yeah, I had a little Moz surgery yesterday, so you can call me Vincent Van Doe, for the time being. It's they had to pack it, so it looks worse than it really is. It's just a little. The older you get, we were the babies that ran around with no sunscreen in the sun the entire day, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, we didn't, and when Copper Tone really came out, we only wore it because it smelled like the beach.
exactly, yeah.
We still
So
didn't think, I know, believe me, my
right.
doctors are like, oh, if,
You
um,
know, it is what it is, but you know what? It didn't. The nice thing, it airs out my brain so I can think better.
only you, Brian, only
Thank
you.
you.
Well, we'll keep praying for you that all heals good
I'm sure it will,
comes
but
and
thank you.
comes back good. Yeah, because it can be a little nerve-wracking.
Yep.
I tapped Brian today because there's nobody that does what he does any better.
Thank you.
And he's taught me so much. Brian is the director of direction
Mm-hmm.
at B2b Interactive Marketing. He's nationwide. He can go anywhere, do anything. He does workshops and seminars and keynote speaking, and his customers come from all over. But let me tell you a little bit about Brian. Brian stands at the intersection of traditional marketing wisdom and cutting edge digital and AI strategy, specializing in empowering nonprofit organizations to amplify their impact through data driven, cost effective campaigns. As the founder and president of B2b Interactive Marketing, an award winning consulting serving corporations and nonprofits since 2001, I met you shortly after that. He
You
has
did.
refined a relationship centric approach that transformed how mission driven organizations connect with donors, volunteers, and communities. And what he's going to say today is going to be very impactful. And wait to hear. Brian has served on many nonprofit boards himself, including membership organizations like the American Marketing Association Raleigh Chamber in North Carolina, as a member and president of the Batavia, Illinois Chamber of Commerce. He's also worked with the United Way of Aurora and numerous other local and national nonprofits. With over 45 years of marketing experience, he knows how to define an audience, reach them, and get them to take action. Big.
Hmm.
He's also nationally recognized as a speaker. He's authored 5 different books, which are phenomenal. He's my bacon guy. And his
Hmm.
own podcast, he has over 1,000 episodes. That is enormous. So, without further ado,
Well, thank you for having me, number one. Number two, it's been too long. And number three, I know you as I will always know you as the person who took a chamber of commerce from the doldrums of almost dying to turning it into one of the most vibrant chambers of commerce I've ever seen.
oh, thank
And
you.
yeah, no, you're welcome. And because you are a person who is all about action, getting stuff done, and educating people as to how to run their businesses better. So, my main goal today is to help you and your nonprofit partners understand what it means to market a nonprofit because currently I'm working with business to business companies, all right, and they're generally making $5 to $100 million a year. When you have a $5 to $100 million a year company, you have a budget to work with. We all know that nonprofits are shoestring, but I maybe the first thing I should do is basically set some groundwork as to what we're going to be defining and what we need to talk about today. Okay, so the first thing I want to start off with is nonprofit is a business tax standard. You come in as a nonprofit, you're taxed differently. No profit is a bad business decision.
Yeah.
So as a nonprofit, you can make a huge amount of money. I mean, I just did, my dog Layla and me did a 50-mile walk for the American Cancer Society, right? They got people all over the country getting to donate by walking their dogs. And, we raised a little over $500, but it's just basically walking her 50 miles to make $500. You know, they use marketing in a way that is very clear and profitable to them. And, they have a way of doing that with smaller organizations, local organizations. The only difference is the scale, right? The scale of the business. So that's number one. Number two, a lot of people conflate marketing and sales, and they're two completely different things that are intertwined, right? Marketing is the ability to get your message out and get people to take action,
Yeah.
right? So that's one of the biggest problems with marketing that people get into is they understand that, they need to get the word out, but where they fall short is getting people to actually do something,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Right.
So, I mean, the key thing is what is your intention when you're doing marketing, right? What are you trying to get people to do? The third thing that I think that's really important is in today's world in marketing, and you said that, I go back 45 years. This is true. I'm pre-email, pre-website, pre-Facebook, pre-everything. And, I've become I hate the word expert, but, because you can never be an expert in anything like AI or LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that, because every day you wake up, it's different, right? You can be a user who understands it, but you can never be an expert
Well, you're a
because,
specialist in it, definitely. I mean, that's your specialties.
right. But the key thing is traditional marketing and, online marketing have the same kind of thing. You want to get attention, right?
Yeah.
You put things online, you try to get attention with email, social media, any, live events, whatever it is. But the key thing, it's not the attention that you're really trying to focus on, it's the intention
Mhm.
of what you want people to do, right? And
Right.
then, so the final thing I want to talk about, at least laying the groundwork, is every nonprofit has three audiences. The first one, which is the lifeblood, is the donor, right? If you don't get money, you can't run the business.
Right.
The second one is the volunteer. And the volunteer are the people that come in and do things. And they don't have money to donate, but they can volunteer their time, which basically offsets the need to hire more people. And then the third one is the advocate. The advocate are people that stand behind you. Like, for example, I'm an advocate of dogs. American Cancer Society came to me and said, "Would you be willing to walk your dog for, helping do things?" So I'm an advocate for that. Which ended up being part donor, part advocate, part volunteer, all in one, right? But
Right. Right.
what you have to understand is that there are three completely different audiences that you have to communicate to. So, um, so give me a question that you would like me to answer right off the
Well,
bat.
there's a couple things. You talked about the difference in the donor, the volunteer, and the advocate. How do you reach them? And do you lump it all into the same category? Like we're looking for blah, 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 blah. Or is it more individual to the marketing needs of what they're looking for?
Yes, and that is exactly 100% correct. All right. Um, so let me level set the three different groups. Okay. The donation people basically have a different need than the volunteer people, than the advocate people. So, yes, you have three different audiences, which means if you're going to be successful, you need to approach each one as if you were selling three different products to three different people. Product number one, we'll go to the advocate first. The advocate is somebody who wants to promote what you do, but I hate to sound selfish about it, but they promote what you do because they want to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, they get the warm
So,
and fuzzies.
exactly, right? So those are the people that will, if you put up something saying, "Hey, I'm going to use the dog walking as a example throughout this. Um, I'm into dogs, and I'm going to walk my dog for the American Cancer Society. What, who the star of that entire thing was, right? Layla, my dog. So, and unfortunately, in the middle of it, um, she had was diagnosed with heartworm. So I couldn't walk her because that was part of the deal is you have to keep her calm. So what did I do as an advocate? I made a commitment and I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk with my neighbors' dogs who are friends with Layla and interview them and put up little videos. And, so my desire to promote my dog and desire to promote dogs and things like that took me to that next level. So advocates want to be able to send, other people information about themselves, tagging you as the reason for it. They want to feel good about the community. They want to feel good about, whatever it is that they're into. So what you have to do is you have to create content. You have to create something that gives the advocate the ability to share and promote and send and get your name out there. Now, they may donate, they may not donate, right? They may volunteer, they may not volunteer, but you have to still look at them as an independent group, right? Somebody can fall into all three. But the
Mhm.
key thing is what you do for them. That would be a social media post. Okay, so an example of that is um, you know, the average, dog walking, if they came up with something like dog walking every single day helps prevent cancer because, yeah, that would
Mhm.
be, something that you could do. So you can actually have them repost that, getting them back to whatever it is that you want them to do. Remember, I said, we're not just looking for attention, we're looking for action. We're looking for intention. When those people post, where do we want those people to go? And I'll come back to the marketing trifecta, which we'll talk about a little further down the line. Second group is the volunteers. Volunteers don't have a lot of money, but they have time. All right. And so what you have to do with the volunteers, you have to say, here's a calendar of events. Here's where you can help us out. Here's where you can volunteer. Sign up here. The intention with that is to get people to sign up and show up, right?
Right.
So that is huge in the way that you communicate to them. The third group is the donors. Now, donors, if you want to keep donors engaged, you need to tell donors what you're doing with their dollars.
I like this.
So, so the key thing is let me use another example here. And that would be, let's say you're a supporting, battered women, homeless women, something like that. And the big need for them is diapers. They need to feed their kids, but they can't afford diapers. And Lord knows they're expensive.
Yeah.
So with a donor, you say, we're in need of diapers. Can you help donate either drop off some diapers at our location? Or would you be willing to allocate X amount of dollars for diapers, right? So that's where the donor would say, great. Now, what you want to do with the donor is say, hey, we got in 4,000 diapers, which helped 10 families for 3 months do this. You want to put a face, you want to put an emotion on what their dollars are doing, which means you have to do that all the time, once a month, once a week, whatever you can muster up. The volunteers, you go to them and say, we need diapers. We're getting people to donate them. Can you come help us put them on the shelf and distribute them to the people who need them in these specific times? Right? And then the advocate, you want to say to them, you know, homeless or battered women, have a hard enough time, but being able just to feed their family is one of the biggest challenges and they can't afford diapers. So if you want to learn more about how, diapers help a family, here's an article that we wrote about how diapers actually save them enough money to feed their kids healthy food, right? So we're looking at three completely different messages, all right? The one that goes out to the volunteers is going to be, here's an email, here's a social media post, here's a link to sign up to do something, right? To get that action.
Yeah.
The second one is the donor is like, here's a link to donate, or here is our address to drop off. And then the third one is a link to an article that is sitting on your website about the value of diapers when somebody needs them like this and what it means to their financial well-being, right? So you're
Yeah.
hoping the advocate will educate, right? The volunteer will engage and actually do something to help you avoid having to spend money to pay people to come do things.
Mhm.
And then the donor needs to know that if they donate uh, $100, that $100 buys X amount of diapers and serves these families. So they need to see where their dollars are going in action. So that is huge.
It is.
It's understanding the three different methodologies. Now, nothing says you can't send out an email and do a social media post on each one of those, right? But the key thing is that when you're sending out an email, and this is where a lot of people fail, is they tend to do what we call the digest, right? So the digest ends up being, here's a employee of the month. Here's the birthdays that are coming up. Here's a featured article about this. Here is, what our needs are. Here is, all these different things. And you try to feed everybody the same information and they hope they will um, self-regulate what they read. When in
Right.
reality, what you're doing is you're causing their brain to cramp because they don't know what to click on, what to do.
Mhm.
Because you're not saying, hey, volunteer, click here. Hey, donor, click here. Hey, advocate, click here. If you want to do that, and again, you could have three things in there, volunteers, click here, donors, click here, whatever, but you don't want to have this big barrage of things. A
Yeah.
better way of doing it is sending and knowing who your donors are and just sending them an email specific to them saying, donors, here's what you did. Volunteers, here's what you can do. Advocates, here's how you can help. So it means you could send out three different emails to three different groups that you've identified, and
Mhm.
then you can also put out three social media posts that say the same thing. So you need to say, when somebody looks at anything online, whether it's an email or social media, you're asking for their attention, which is 8 seconds. And if in that 8 seconds they don't feel like this is directed towards me, they will move on.
Yeah.
So yeah, siloing the way that you market is very important.
That's a really good way to put that. I mean, it's an excellent way to put that. And every single nonprofit has to know those identifiable features of those three different segmented categories
Mhm.
because it helps them with every piece of their marketing, correct?
Right.
I mean, you and I both get barrages of emails, and some of them I have no idea what they're asking me for.
Exactly.
I don't know what they want. I want to email back and go, what do you want? What do you you've got I'll click whatever you want, but then I'm not one of those people. I'm more here. And so I love the fact that you've broken that down into those three categories. Now, we all know that the dollar is getting tighter and tighter for volunteers, correct? Or
Correct.
for our donors.
Yes.
How do you stand out as a nonprofit, Brian? How do you grab somebody's attention? And
Well,
it has to be truthful, correct? I mean,
correct.
nonprofits have a social responsibility.
Correct. Absolutely. So to answer that question, the key thing that I try to do is tell people that the devil is in the details or data, right?
Yeah.
So you should be maintaining a database of each one of those individual groups. And it should be, I mean, you can have one big database, but you should be able to sort it out. Some people use a CRM, some people use a spreadsheet, it doesn't matter what it is.
Mhm.
But you should be able to identify those people. And once you've identified them, when somebody donates, you should have their email address, right? So you should know exactly who they are. One of the things that nonprofits can do on social media is go find those people, create a group in Facebook or in LinkedIn or something, and
Mhm.
invite people to that group. It's, let's call it the dog walking volunteers, the dog walking donators, the diaper whatever, you know. You
Mhm.
you try to get them basically to feel like they're part of a community, right? but also you need to treat them as individuals. So the first thing you need to do is segment out who you're trying to talk to and what you expect them to do. That's kind of the key to making this work. So once you do that, you already know that a donor is aligned with the fact that they want to give money and they want to see results, and volunteers want to see the results of what they do, right?
Right.
You know, so after you've had the diaper distribution, you should be able to email or put a social post. We had 12 volunteers who got 1,000 diapers out to the community in an hour and a half, right? You should celebrate the people that are celebrating you, right? The key thing
Yeah.
is you're in the business of massaging people's egos. And I mean
Yeah.
that in a good way, not in a bad way.
Right. Right. I my head is like this because and you and I have had some really
Yes,
long discussions in the last, 20 years about
yes,
talking about we have to recognize our volunteers more. We have to recognize
yes,
our donors and our advocates. We're not doing that enough.
right. But they're not looking for you to promote them to the world, right?
No,
What
no.
they want is they want a pat on the back and a thank you, right?
Yeah,
That's really what they want. They want recognition that they are seen and their time has value and their money has value and their social posting and advocacy has value. So those are the key things that I think that are really important. Is you got to remember you're dealing with a bunch of humans who have emotions. They're not numbers. They're not just people on a spreadsheet. They're people.
right.
And that's what marketing is all about. Now, let me dive into something that I think is important to look at when it comes to marketing. So I think we've laid out a good, hey, you got three silos, right? Treat
Yes,
each silo
exactly.
differently. You can use it whatever you think is going to be the best way to communicate with them. Because I can't say, it's like there are certain people, like for example, if all your donors are 65 and older, they may not be on social media, right?
Right,
If all your donors are in their 20s, they may be on TikTok and not Facebook, right? So every group is you're going to have to identify where your donors are, right? You have to know where they're at and talk to them where they're at. But I think the key thing to understand about marketing is an activity. And this is especially true with the big companies that I work with. Okay, let's say, we have a company that's making, $10 million a year, right? They come in and they spend $100,000 a year. Oh my God, that's a lot of money on marketing, right? But when you sit down and look at it, it basically is what, 10% or 1%? Is
1%.
it? Yeah, 1%. So
1.
1% of their money is spent on marketing,
Mhm.
right? So they're taking only 1%. An average, B2B business will spend 5% on marketing. What they're expecting from that is to make three times what they spent,
Right,
right? So
right.
if you spend $100,000, your baseline should be $300,000 in return.
Mhm.
And what generally happens is you get a 10 times. So for every $100,000 they spend, they end up making $1 million in return, right? So marketing is a measurable thing that happens. And you're going to measure each one of those three different groups differently, right? It's really hard to measure advocates because you can't see who is responding or getting back to it. But the one thing that you can say is if I put together something and I send it to the advocates and the advocates post it, and then I get an extra 1,000 hits on the website,
Yeah,
for our nonprofit, that means the advocates are doing their job, right? If the volunteers, you're putting out volunteers and you have too many volunteers to fill slots, that means that you have an abundance of volunteers. You may find other things for them to do
right,
rather than just distribute diapers. And the donors, again, the goal is to keep them donating.
right.
One of the things that we did at Batavia Chamber of Commerce, which I was very proud of, is the average Chamber of Commerce sends you an annual invoice. Here's your bill for 300 bucks. And every single year in September, when you got the bill for 300 bucks, you'd say, did I get $300 worth of value? You may have gotten $300 worth of value in January, but when it comes in September, it's like, I haven't seen anything this summer, so I'm not going to come back and do it. One of the things that we did is we basically created a subscription model that allowed people to pay 20 bucks a month, $240 a year, 25 bucks a month, 300 bucks a year. to get the same thing. But the key thing is $20 a month with a reminder of what's happening, right? So here is your invoice or your auto debit, but we're sending you something that says this month we did this, this month we did this. So the key thing that you want to do is if you're working with donors, you want to make sure that they're getting feedback on a very regular basis, meaning you should be sending out at least something once a month. Okay, so that means that if you look at the scope of the business, you're going to be sending out 12 different things per year times three different groups, which means that you have an entire calendar of 36 things that you need to send out.
Mhm.
All right. Now, let's get down to, so does that all make sense so far?
It totally makes sense to me. And yeah, I mean, I always preached when I was at every chamber. How many member touches have you had this week?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just take their money and then let them sit there for another year or
Right.
hope they come for something else. Member touch
Right.
is very important.
Yeah. So I just laid out for you the 36 things that you have to do per year,
Yeah.
right? 36, not a lot, it's three a month.
No,
All
no.
right. So with that, there's something I call the marketing trifecta. All right. The marketing trifecta is creating content, distributing content, and getting people to take action.
Right.
So, for example, you do a diaper, diaper event, all right? What you do is you go and you write a blog post or you put together something on your website. Don't just do an email and send it out. Have a home for it. And that's why I call the website the home base, right? So
Mhm.
do a little article about, hey, we had this event coming up, or we have this event coming up. 1 month could be it's coming, 1 month here's what's happened, right? So you say that, you know, in this entire time, we again got, 1,000 packages of diapers and distributed to 100 families and yada, 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 all the great stuff that happened. That content then becomes the thing that you can feed to distribute, right? So then you can take that content and do a little email about it to your donors or volunteers or advocates and say, here's a recap of what happened with the diaper donation day,
Right,
right?
right.
Okay. That same content can be distributed via social media, being put up in a group. It can be put up on your business page,
Mhm.
or it can be put up just as an individual. One of the things I like to do too is everybody in your organization should be posting the same stuff because it amplifies what you're doing, right? So the three key things of the marketing trifecta is number one, having a home base and creating content to put on that home base. Number two is distributing and having a regular way of doing it. Remember, 36 things, right?
Right.
Even if you doubled it up and even if it was like, you know, 72 things, we're talking one email, one social. It's not a lot if you look at it in the entire scope of a year. And then finally, you want to direct people back to your website.
Mm.
Because getting people back to your website is the place they take action. That's the place where they can sign up to volunteer, they can sign up to donate, they can sign up to advocate, right? So
Yes.
those three things work in concert. The content drives people to, content feeds whatever it is that you're going to do, and that should drive people back to your website, which ultimately will get people to take action, sign up for your email list, do whatever it is that they need to do.
Well, they're going to find
So,
out some more important things. But like you said, you have to drive them home.
exactly,
They
right.
have
You
to
have to
drive
drive
them
home,
home. Yeah.
right? Gonna take one more quick break.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so now I think we've kind of done a good, kind of base, right? We've talked about who your audience is, how you
Mhm.
communicate with your audience. Now I think it's time to talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Mhm.
That 800-pound gorilla is AI.
Yes.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence is exactly what it is. It's artificial and it's not really super intelligent. All
No.
right. People think that AI is going to completely change the world, and in some instances, it will. You can use AI to go into a spreadsheet and pull out everybody who's donated, right? You can use it for things of that nature. But the one thing that you have to be aware of with AI is AI. is not as intelligent as they make it out to be. What it's doing, it's going across the internet and scraping content, and it's pulling together that content and aggregating it into an answer. The problem is, it's the old adage of computers, garbage in, garbage out. Okay. There are some, I'll use Twitter as an example. Twitter has its own AI called Grok. All right.
Okay.
Facebook has Llama. ChatGPT is a separate entity, and there's something I use called Perplexity. All right. Perplexity actually pulls everything into one common area. So it'll grab information from multiple things and give you advice. Um, One of the things I've had to teach my wife Kim, especially with, the dog having heartworm and stuff like that, is do not Google anything. Because Google is going out and scraping the web and grabbing all this information and feeding you things. And Google has one goal and one goal in mind, and that's it. And that is to sell ads. Facebook used to be a really great playground, but Facebook is also in the business of selling ads, right?
Yes.
AI, which has not been monetized yet, is basically going out and scraping the internet, pulling together a bunch of information and feeding it to you. The two things that you have to be aware of is number one, what it pulls, it can't guarantee that it's accurate.
Mm-mm.
Grok, if it's pulling everything from Twitter, there's a lot of misinformation on Twitter. There's a lot of misinformation on Facebook. There's a lot of misinformation on websites, right? So when it pulls this information in, it could be a mix of truth and dare, right? It could be
Mm-hmm.
something that really is going to, and not that it would, but it could be a very costly mistake.
Yes.
It could be a legal issue. It could be a plagiarism issue. It could be a lot.
Copyright issues.
Exactly. So one of the things about AI is AI cannot do anything into the future. AI is scraping what's happened in the past and trying to pull it together and make it sound like it's forward thinking, right? So AI is a great tool for certain things. Like, for example, when I do Perplexity, when I'm writing a blog, doing a podcast, I'll go in and ask Perplexity, let's just, how many diapers, like I'm doing research about diapers, right? How many diapers are used in the US? What is the average number of diapers somebody uses per day? I'll grab that information and then I'll rewrite it and aggregate it into what I'm doing. But I won't say, hey, AI, go write me an article that will get my volunteers to donate more diapers. Because it's going to go out there and get some good information, bad information. There's no way to verify it. You have to put it in your own words. You have to use it as a tool, not as a replacement for somebody.
Well, and because AI doesn't distinguish between disposable diapers and cloth diapers.
Exactly.
There's
Right.
two different kinds of diapers.
Yeah, and I mean, there are prompt engineers out there that can get you down to the nitty-gritty of, yes, tell me how many disposable diapers, yada yada yada. You can put in all this detailed
Yeah,
information, but is it coming from the American Diaper Society, or is it coming from Kimberly Clark, or is it coming from where? Who has the correct information on this, right?
right.
Or it could be coming from a mom's group based in Facebook where the kids happen to have, use less diapers because they can't afford it, and you're underserving the kids. You just don't know. So AI is an awesome tool, but it's not going to replace a marketing department. It's not going to replace a writer. It's not going to replace, and this is the biggest thing, all right? One of the things you cannot do in any business, in any marketing, profit, nonprofit, anything else, is outsource relationships. You can't do that.
Right.
Your focus is, again, going back to what we originally talked about, is people, right?
Right.
So you need to know the people that you're talking to. You need to have conversations with them. You need to know what's on their heart, and you need to write to the things that they want. If what AI is going to do is give you the best generic answer it possibly can, and what it's going to do is it's going to fall flat in the vast majority of people. So AI is an awesome tool. It does a lot of cool things. It can generate images, it can write stories for you. It's a great research tool. That's why I like Perplexity, because Perplexity pulls in information from everywhere and then gives you multiple sources that you could say, okay, that's cool. That's a bad source. It'll actually tell you where it pulls it in. Where these other large language models, that's what Llama is large language models are basically just scraping, Whatever it feels it should scrape. Llama, which is Facebook, is scraping Facebook. Grok, which is Twitter, scrapes Twitter, and ChatGPT is scraping everything, right?
Yes, yes.
So, you got to understand what you're getting into when you get into that space. So ultimately, what it boils down to is you're talking to people, know those people, talk to them the way they want to be spoken to for your specific service, community, and outreach needs. And that to me is the most important thing you could think about AI.
Well, relationship marketing is still number one in my book.
Right.
And you have to build relationships with every one of those segments, donors, advocates, and volunteers. And those relationships are all going to be different. And
Right.
you can't just, and I've talked to several lawyers about AI. They don't trust it.
Nope.
They're worried about the plagiarism part. They're worried about, a college senior trying to write a white paper or a thesis or, and end up getting, in trouble because of the plagiarism piece. So
Right.
I'm really telling my nonprofits right now, stay back from it. Um, Look it up yourself. There's other ways to look for this information. Go to specific websites. I send people to um, your baconguy.me website and with everything that's in there and all the different learning tools
Hmm.
that are in there, or buy one of the amazing books or the workbook. I mean,
Yeah, you can find me on Amazon. Just search my name.
I just did. I mean, I love the workbook, the most. Excuse me. So our nonprofits need to understand, and this is pretty much what you're saying. They need to know their people. They need
Hmm.
to know, and they need to categorize those people into one of those three: donor,
Buckets.
advocate, volunteer.
Right. Buckets.
Good. Those buckets, like buckets. Then, like Bozo circuit buckets.
Right.
Then you need to figure out marketing plans because you know me, I'm a big marketing plan. Let's get a plan for this. Let's plan it. Um, of how you're going to market to those three individual groups. Now there'll be
Right.
crossover because some people want to be, I want to be all three of those
Right.
because they're excited. Well, you got to take little bites at the beginning, right?
Right.
You don't want to overdo the big chunk that you're going to be taking. Um, Nonprofits can make money, right?
Yes, they should. They should make money. The more money they make, the more money they can spend, the more money they can use to get more people in to make more money.
What about nonprofits overdoing their event schedule to the point where nobody wants to read their marketing stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Give me one more sec to take one more break, and this will be the last one. So to answer that question directly, um, boy, without getting negative, um, people on your staff tend to do what they do, right? It's like if you got somebody who's a social media expert, everything, for example, everything is a nail when you're a hammer, right?
Right, right.
So if you got a social media expert, everything's going to be social media. If you got an events person, everything's going to be events. I mean, the key thing that I think is really important is feedback. And talk to each one of those groups individually. It's like, how many events would you be willing to come to per year? Right? One, two, 5, 12, what is it? Right? Each one of those things. How many hours are you willing to volunteer? Get a sense of what these people want to do. And there is in the nonprofit space, there tends to be these, I remember it all the time, in working with the United Way. I mean, the United Way spent the vast majority of its time every single year planning out its annual breakfast, right? You'd spend more time working on the annual breakfast than you would, dealing with the people that you're trying to serve. Now I get it. It's recognition. You get people up on stage, you give away awards, it gets in the newspaper, it does all these things. But the problem is that the number of people that come to the annual breakfast is the same people that always come to the annual breakfast, right? You're not talking to a new audience. You're talking to the same old, same old.
Mhm.
So the key thing that you have to decide is, how do I serve the people that already know exist? And then how do we get the attention of the people that don't,
Mhm.
right?
True.
Uh, and so, event focused organizations tend to be people show up and throw up and go. They don't really get involved. Um, when you mix it up a little bit, when you have a meet and greet 1 month, and you have an event the next month, and then you have a virtual town hall in a Zoom meeting the next month, you
Mhm.
have the opportunity to get people who are in different spaces react
Right.
in a way that's going to be probably more conducive to what you're trying to get across, right? So one group may show up in person, a meet and greet. It may be just they show up and walk, sit down, meet somebody and leave. And then the, virtual event may be something that, it could be just a Q and A. You could bring on a leader like we're doing here, right? Bring this on, get everybody live and let them ask questions and, try to figure out what's going to make the most sense. So I think that the key thing that you have to do in order to really optimize your marketing, optimize your audience, optimize everything that you're trying to do is the thing I said before is data, right? Get as much data on people as you possibly can. What do they come to? What don't they come to? And try to emphasize, if you see that, the vast majority of your donors never show up to anything, then don't promote events to them, right? Just give them a monthly reminder of here's where your dollars went,
Yeah.
right? Volunteers may show up to those meet and greets, right? But they probably wouldn't show up to a Zoom meeting because they don't have any questions, right? Advocates may show up to the Zoom meetings because they've got questions, right? And
Right.
you can convert an advocate into a volunteer into a donor, right? You can go all the way through all those things. But the key thing is understanding what each group wants. So getting really good data. And the other thing too is if you have them siloed in buckets, you can survey them, right? Once a quarter. It's just here's our quarterly survey. What was the most impactful thing that we did that got you excited this last quarter? What if we could do something completely, with no limitations, what would you like us to do? It's just ask people questions where they feel like they're being heard and then also communicate back to them that they were heard and you're doing things that, based on this, Zoom meeting that we had with all these advocates, we are going to do a Saturday morning at we're going to get a booth at the farmers market and we're just going to show up and say hi,
Yeah.
because that's what people said. They thought, hey, if we could see you out in the community and it's just literally getting a booth at a farmer's market, which most farmers market as a nonprofit would probably give you space for free,
Mhm.
right? All you need to do is show up and hand out stuff.
Right.
Even if you only get 10 people showing up, the problem is that, hey, we only had 10 people stand by our booth. You need one, you know? What I tell my customers, especially the big ones, is they don't need, they're making millions of dollars, right? We break down a sale in three different buckets for them. We have what we call the basic sale, the mid-level sale, the high-level sale. All right. Basic sale for them would be an order of consumables at $5,000. If you got one consumable sale of $5,000 times 52 weeks, all right, you're talking $250,000 in sales. All right.
Right.
Then you get to the mid level, which is a $50,000, where somebody's ordered, they were already doing the consumables. Now they're going to buy equipment that goes along to use the consumables. All right. If you can get one of those per month at $50,000, you're talking $600,000. Right. And then there's that other big one, which would be a $500,000 sale. That $500,000 sale, all they need is two to four of them, one a quarter or one every other quarter, and it's going to be between $1 and $2 million. So what I've outlined for you is by knowing what your expectations is, 68 sales can equal $3 million worth of sales. That's it. So you're not trying to talk to the world, you're trying to talk to those 68 people that are going to take action.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that, nonprofits, business in general, try to be everything to everybody. It's the difference between a consumer mindset where we have to constantly promote the use, who doesn't use toilet paper, right? But, it's a constant battle between Northern and Charmin and Angelsoft and all these other things. And whatever's on sale, people will be fickle. They'll move around, right?
Right.
Same thing with nonprofits. If you're not communicating with people on a regular basis, they'll get fickle and they'll donate to another group.
Yes.
So what you want to do is treat it more like that individual relationship marketing, business to business thing, is saying whatever I do in the course of a year, if I can get, a $500 sale, $5,000 donation, and a $500,000 something, whatever it is,
Right.
um, whatever you lay out, if you can look at it in those pieces, then you could target those direct groups and try to meet that goal.
That makes complete and perfect sense. And my big thing with nonprofits, and you and I have talked about this for years, is they're shifting of their brain cells from I'm just nonprofit
Right.
to oh, I'm a business and I have to run this like a business. All of a sudden, it makes more sense to them.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a business. I mean, no
It is
matter
a
how you slice
business.
and dice it, you're taking money in and you're sending money out. And at
Yes.
the end of the year, if you don't have money left over, you can't do more stuff.
No.
If you don't make enough money, you can't pay your staff, which means it's going to be harder to get things done.
Yes.
So you are a for-profit business with a non-profit tax status. It is just the way it is. You cannot change that.
No. And we've talked about getting people trained, and I'm a big proponent of legal policies. You know that.
Oh yeah, big
I
time.
think we have to slap legal policies on things to keep people organized, uh,
Right.
to keep them out of trouble. And a social media policy is one of those that I do.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's like who can do it? What are you going to allow? And what's going to happen if they violate this? You have to have,
Right.
right, an outcome.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's probably going to have to be negative because with all the crap that's out into the spheres, people still want that warm and fuzz. They want
Right.
to know that their dollar has gone for this and it will not be taken advantage of.
Right.
And it's funny you're talking about diapers because I did a solo gig last week on here because one of my people got sick on me, and I was talking about the diaper dash that I did in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was a drive-by diaper dash where you could throw packs of diapers at the volunteers and try to knock them over. We had the best time.
I bet.
And you can't do that if you're going to be, doing bottles of water. That would hurt. But things like diapers are things, and it got people involved because all of a sudden it showed them that it was fun. I mean, and like you said, diapers aren't cheap.
Right.
We've got granddaughters, one still in diapers. Good God, they're expensive. So I love the fact that you're putting things into three different buckets: the
Mm-hmm.
advocate, the volunteer, and the donor.
Mm-hmm.
Because and very few times I've seen in my career, it's one person in the same, right? It's breaking it down and building a relationship,
Right.
um, so that you understand what their targets are, right? Like
Right.
I'm going to
What
go after
motivates them?
what motivates them. And you can have separate lists. You can have separate emails, separate, constant contact blasts or separate surveys, but you have to have a plan.
Right.
And I think that's where Brian comes into so many nonprofits throughout the country is he'll help you devise that plan based on past history, knowledge, education, training, where it's going to go, how it's going to work. So I will continually tell people to go to baconguy.me, where you're going to be able to find all the resources that you need. Brian's information is in there.
Yep.
Have a consultation with him. Set up a time to have a consultation with him. See if,
Yeah.
and he'll tell you. He's not going to try to sell you himself if he's not the right person for you. He doesn't
100%.
want to be dragging you through the process of making your nonprofit better, bigger, stronger.
Well, and more importantly, is if I can't help you, I'll tell you right off the bat.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the key is like if I can't, I tell my clients, if I can't help you get at least a 3-to-1 return on investment, I'm not your guy,
right,
right? If you're going to spend $1,000 a year, making you $3,000 is probably not what I'm going to do,
right, right.
But the most important thing is that I can come in and act as a consultant, or I can come in and bring a team of people that does everything, right? And so if you have a budget, we can actually do something. I mean, I've got clients that spend like about $1,500 a month. And what we do is we actually interview somebody in the organization, we write a blog post, and then we can actually get that posted to social media and send out an email, which basically covers the basis of what we're talking about. Now, with 3 different audiences, you may or may not be able to cover all of them, but just showing that, I can come in and teach you how to do it, we can come in and do it for you. But if I'm not going to make you money, if I don't think that, doing that blog post is going to make you more than $1,500 times three, which is $5,000, if you're not going to get more than $5,000 of value, then don't do it. It's that simple.
Well, and Brian's my web guy. He designed my website. He upkeeps my website. I email him when I don't know how to get back into my website because
Yep.
I'm not the one you hire for the website, you know. And Brian can create with e-commerce platforms, donor platforms, uh,
Hmm.
websites that are functional and work for the nonprofits.
Yep.
Then instead of a static page that never changes with too many colors, and you just want, because Brian said to me, send me these pictures. I want this, 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 and this
Yep.
explicit. So I made it easy. I'm like, oh, I can, it was easy for me to do. But
Right.
he's done that for many nonprofits too. So I want you to keep that in mind. Last parting words for the today, Brian. What have you got?
The last parting words are number one, just showing up to Sally's videos is very important. You're going to learn stuff, and I think that's important. If you keep learning, you keep earning. And but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come on and kind of spread a little wisdom and spend some time with you too, which is always fun.
Well, I think you're going to have to come back because you bring so much to the table. And as AI continues to develop or redevelop or whatever, we're probably going to need updates. And I'm still struggling. I think you and I are going to have to finish this together. I'm struggling to finish an AI policy for nonprofits.
Yep, it's a good
Uh,
idea. I'll be happy to work with you.
I would appreciate that because I'm getting stuck because, I'm not the bacon guy.
Hey,
So, Brian, thank you so very
thank
much.
you, Sally. I
And
appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun. I look forward to the next one.
baconguide.me, and there'll be a link in here to go to. Again, thank you so much, and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you. You're welcome.